What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Seeds of Change. This week, we're going to have a conversation talking about how we need to build ourselves up, how we need to believe in ourselves, how we have to understand that we are someone and we are enough for what we are supposed to be doing. So, thank you for tuning in. I thank you for your support. I thank you for sharing. I thank you for liking the subscribes and the comments and everything. I greatly appreciate it. It blesses my heart. We do have a few family announcements before we go too far. First of all, of course, we have tomorrow the red carpet affair that's going on tomorrow. And if you do have some free time, I strongly recommend that you come through. The red carpet dance party is going to be located at Dedicated Senior Medical, 330 West Oregon Avenue, Philadelphia, PA 19148. It's hosted by Unified Network Initiative. There's going to be dancing, bingo, food and drinks, free transportation included. So if you need an Uber transfer, make sure you call in. You can get a ride and get there. Please contact us if you have any additional questions. The event starts at 12 and it'll be to 4. If you just want to stop in, if you just want to get in some of the festivities, get some of the education, you can come by. Just drop on by whenever you can. In addition to all the fun, this is at a medical facility, so they're gonna or a medical center. So they're going to give you a tour of the facility. They're going to give you some education in the sense of if you have questions about how to navigate your insurance or your health benefits or other resources that are available to you, you're welcome to ask your questions. If you do just want to come and listen and then listen to your music and eat the food and participate in activities, you could do that too. That's not a problem. But all of it is at your disposal. So I recommend you come out. I hope you pencil it on your calendar because we have been talking about it for a while. So I hope you take the time to come by and at least get some information, have a good time, fellowship, mingle, and just be able to just have a good time. It's getting warm outside and it's nothing yet to do. You don't have to pay for anything and you get your food, you get your games, you get your transportation, you can have a good time. So please come out. Even if it's just for a second, come on out. And of course, we do have the Easter egg hunt that's coming up. Is at Society for the Helping Church. I did mention it last week, but I do want to make sure you write it down on your calendar because we have enough time. It's on 1323 West Susquehanna Avenue, Philadelphia, PA 19122. So, like I said, that should be a good time. Make sure you bring your kids out. If you have nieces and nephews, if you have grandchildren, make sure you bring them out. It'll be on April the 8th. So, mark it down on your calendar now. I know it's a little ahead of time, but mark it down so you can come on out and make sure you just come ready to have a good time. And make sure you bring children with you. Tell a child that you know if you can't come. Make sure you share the opportunity for them to be a part. So, those are just a couple family announcements we have right now. But if you do have any, make sure you contact me. Make sure you send an email at ministermattmills at gmail.com. MINMATTMILLS at gmail.com. And I promise I'll make the announcement. If you have a prayer request, if you have a praise report, anything that you could think of that's a good update that you want to share or that you want to announce, make sure you let me know you want it mentioned. Or if it's something personal, you just want to put a name up in prayer, make sure you let me know also. I have no problem with doing that. That's the least I can do. Thank you again for your support. And as we get into what I kind of mentioned at the top about encouraging you and thinking about, that we are enough. I did have the opportunity to preach on Sunday, and I kind of want to share a little bit of it, what we talked about, because as much as it might have blessed other people, it blessed me first. And to be transparent, I struggle with the premise of being enough, of thinking that what I have is not enough or it'll never be enough. Me as an individual will never be enough to fulfill not only the responsibilities that I have, but the desires and the dreams and the purpose that's over my life. So, the scripture that I recommend you reading is Judges chapter 6, verse 14 and 16, and then go read Judges chapter 7 because it tells a story about Gideon. And Gideon is a person that found himself, you know, I guess caught off guard because the angel came upon him telling him that him calling him a great warrior, he had something that he had to do. He had to work in a battle that God was going to deliver him, that he was going to win this battle. But his response was that he didn't think he was enough, that he didn't understand why he was tasked with this, that he was the least. So why would you expect anything more of him? So I think that we all can relate to some point where we were assigned a task or given a task and we didn't feel like we could do it. Whether it was intelligence, financial, emotional, whatever the task that was assigned to us, we didn't think we had what it takes to fulfill this task. And I think that's where I find myself. And that's why I related to Gideon because many times, even though you might progress, sometimes you struggle with you being able to do this. And if you read the story, God tells him at a point, you need to get rid of some of the men you have, some of the soldiers that you have, because you have too much for me to do what I desire to do. To fulfill the work I told you that I was going to do, you need less. And I can understand it also because me being a person that likes being in control, I like to overthink. I can understand me doing what Gideon did, having too many soldiers, having too much of a plan, and not giving God room to work. And that is important because a lot of times we want such a desired outcome that we do our own planning, that we move outside of the will of God. And if we're going to be honest, we take God out of the driver's seat. And then we're confused when God is not able to do what he said he was going to do. Part of it is on us because we desire to be prepared so much that we don't give God room to prepare us. And you get an A for effort, you get an A for being passionate. But if you are getting in God's way, you're wrong. If you read the story, he told Gideon to get rid of a good amount of his soldiers and left the instruction that if you are afraid, you need to go. Which I thought was interesting because sometimes we don't adjust well to the changes we need to make in our lives. We don't do well letting go of control. And I think that also takes into account or includes the fact that sometimes people are in places they don't need to be. We consult them with things they don't need to be consulted with. If you find yourself with a dream or a purpose or a vision, sometimes the people you have around you aren't the best for that given task. Either because they're one, it's not their vision, two, they're not on the same page as you. So they can't give you sound advice or give you effective guidance because of where they are. And I think you need wisdom to realize that. The reason I'm stressing that and mentioning that is because, at least for me, I feel the urge to figure it out. Oh, yes, I trust God. I believe in God. I know God can provide. But knowing me, I have to figure this out. I have to figure out what's next. I need to figure out what I could do. What work could I do? What could I do to make this happen faster? To bring in enough to fulfill my responsibility. And God is saying, you are doing too much for me. And some of us are in that place. You're doing too much. And you say, well, I'm not doing too much. I'm not doing too much. You're thinking too much. Some of us are in our heads so much trying to figure out what we could do, what we couldn't do, what we should do, what we shouldn't do, that we're not even listening to God. We're not even giving God the opportunity to create an opportunity to do what he told us he was going to do. And that's why I can relate to Gideon, because Gideon was obedient. And that's important to mention. Gideon was willing to let go some of that comfort. And the reason I say comfort, when you have thousands of soldiers, that's comfort. When you're going into a battle, we're taught the larger number of soldiers, the more effective you're going to be in battle. And you might say, okay, I'm not in a battle. I'm not in a war. You're in a battle for your life. And you are in a war in a sense because you're trying to keep going to your purpose. You're trying to push through. So you are in a war. And we are conditioned to think the more that we have, the more people we know, the more skills we have, the more intelligence we acquire, we will be well equipped to win the war. That might be true, but I would challenge you that you need to consider where you're getting this from. Because earthly things you are acquiring is nothing compared to what God can do. And I'm saying this as a testimony myself, is that you can do a lot of work here. You can try to acquire a lot of things, trying to justify yourself in other people's eyesight and in your own eyesight that you are worthy to not only lead, but also win. And the reason I'm pointing this out is if God picked you and if God told you he was going to do this, you have nothing else to prove. No one else has to believe this if God told you this. You do not have to overthink and overdo and move outside of the will of God if God told you he was going to do it. And I know we're picking up where we left off because we kind of talked about rest. But this is the mindset you need to have coming out of your rest, because you need to stay in the will of God. You need to stay in a place where God can do his work. That's what we've been talking about the last few weeks, is how staying in the will, in the rest of God, and willing to stay under God's direction and his plan, despite how you might feel. Because I'm sure Gideon at some point didn't think it made sense that he kept losing soldiers before the battle. But at some point, you have to trust the creator who created the purpose. You were given an assignment by God. You have to learn how to trust in God for this assignment to be fulfilled. Because all the overworking and all the overstressing you're doing won't get you there. And the flip side is the lack of work you're doing, the lack of stress you're putting yourself under won't get you there. Because there are also people that's doing the opposite. Out of fear and out of comfort, they're not moving. They're not willing to pursue, to take on that battle because of fear. So they stay in the complacent camp, even though God has told you what he was going to do. And God has confirmed what he was going to do. You got to move forward, because in the same situation with Gideon, if Gideon was told by the angel that God was going to do this, and then God came back and told him, you still have too much. You have too many soldiers for me to give you the victory. But if you never go to the camp, if you never go to the battle, there also is no victory. And there are many people who are afraid to go to the battle. Yes, you're living. Yes, you're doing ministry. Yes, you're trying to help people. But when it comes to your own personal battle and to really get out of your comfort zone to find what you are meant to do, you don't go. And my advice to you is, even if you're afraid, even if you're unsure, even if you doubt if you can do it, I challenge you to have enough faith that God believes in you. Because if you continue to read, God put people around him that believed. When he told him to go down to the camp, he sent a friend with him and then allowed him to hear the people that he was going to fight were afraid of him because they knew God gave him the victory. And he rejoiced because he felt confident in knowing that God was going to do what he said he was going to do. Don't let anyone tell you you're not enough. Don't let anyone have the power over you to doubt who you are. You are enough. You were created enough just the way you were. Everything you've been through happened for a reason, and it's for the betterment of you. You have to believe that God believes in you. And I'm saying this as a person that struggles with believing in himself. But I have to find peace and power in knowing that God believes in me. Even when I don't believe in myself, even when I doubt myself, I need to find comfort in knowing that God believes in me. So I pray that you get the same encouragement that I got out of it. The same empowerment to know that the God that you serve believes in you, despite how you might feel about yourself. And that when you find yourself in this Gideon moment, when you say, why you? And I'm the least of these, what makes me ready to go into battle? Have confidence that God said he was going to give you the victory. And understand that you are enough because you are what God needs in this season for this assignment. So I thank you for your time. I thank you for tuning in. I pray that you are blessed. I pray that you feel empowered. I pray that you find peace whenever you listen to this. I pray that you have an enjoyable weekend, and I pray that you will find time to fellowship with Christ in your own quiet time. I pray that you are able to make the most of your time because it's the one thing we can't get back, but I know you can make the most of it. So I thank you. I appreciate you. And until next time.